Hey, what's up, guys? I am joined with Tim, not on my channel right now. This is definitely Tim's channel. I'm just chilling here and totally going to give an intro for you guys. But we're actually going to do our very first collaboration, which is super awesome. So, me and Tim have been friends for a long time in the industry. We've been hanging out. We've been kind of just like slowly inching and like mixing up kind of some of our media. We have a Discord channel together now. So, we're doing a lot of awesome things together. And today, we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite games that really just shot up the ranks real quick for me, Dune Imperium. And, it's just going to be an interesting discussion because I don't think we really have the same opinion on this game. At least, definitely not the same passion for this game. Huh, Tim?
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's the reason why we started this whole episode series-ish is because we're trying to find games that don't match our taste, which is crazy because we have very, very similar tastes in gaming. So I feel like Dune Imperium is going to be one of those games where we may or may not agree. But the more I played it, the more I'm starting to change my opinion. So we'll see about that as the discussion goes on. But yeah, we'll leave links to the Discord channel down below. And we're going to get started with talking about Dune Imperium. So Sam, do you want to tell people a little bit about what this game's about?
Totally. Yeah. So if you've never played Dune Imperium before, if this is like a brand new name of a game for you, this is what it looks like. And Dune Imperium is obviously based in the Dune universe. So Dune, it's one of my favorite universes, so that might play into how much I like it. But so Dune, if you don't know, it's essentially just like a sci-fi, but kind of a feudal sci-fi theme. So it's very like, we still have like kingdoms, we still have like kings, and it's very sword fighting is still in here, even though it's a sci-fi kind of world, kind of like Game of Thrones in space. But the game itself, this one in particular, is a worker placement game, and it's also a deck building game. So essentially, you're going to be able to build out your deck. You're going to be going up all these different tracks with all these different alliances. You're going to be building up victory points that way. And you can also get victory points from buying certain cards and also winning combats. That's one of the things that will happen at the end of each round of the game, is that you're actually going to see how much warriors you've committed to the combat. And whoever wins out on that will get all of the rewards. And sometimes that can give you some really good victory points as well. So there's so many different paths you can go down. You can kind of go down like a combat heavy path, an influence heavy path, and also like a deck building path. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I like it so much. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Dude, honestly, that was an epic intro because if I were to do the exact same thing, that would take me 7 takes. Like,
really?
the fact that you did it in one take, that was insane, dude. That was like 7 takes for me for sure. 7 to 10. Easily.
Sick.
This guy, man. Okay, so what's like your favorite thing about this game?
Okay, so my favorite thing about Dune Imperium right now has got to be the actual like deck building part of it, which is interesting because a lot of people have said to me that the deck building aspect of this game is its weakest aspect. However, I completely disagree with everyone that says that, mostly because in this game, it really feels like when you purchase a card, that card completely matters to your deck. And that's what deck building's all about for me, is like if I can see a card one time and me playing it that one time matters, that's what's most important. You know what I mean?
I heard the same thing too of people not liking the deck building. But I feel like every card is so impactful and you barely get any cards to begin with. Sorry, that's Luna, by the way. She's like right outside my door.
She's so cute.
I don't even consider that cute. But yeah.
Oh, I don't have a
like
dog.
the deck building in this game too. You have a cat though.
I do have a cat. Yeah. Cats are adorable, but dogs are cute from a distance for me. But yeah, no, that is exactly what people say. That's like the biggest thing that people have against this game, is that it's posed as a deck building worker placement game, but the deck building is super weak, which I just disagree with. I just don't think that's true at all. You can buy cards that essentially do more combat heavy abilities, because there's this whole reveal phase, which I think is genius. Essentially, at the end of your turn, any cards that you didn't play, you're going to end up putting out in front of you, and those are going to have like it's a resource called Persuasion. That resource can be used to buy new cards. Sometimes there's going to be other symbols down below that card. Sometimes you're going to have combat symbols. And this is one of the ways that you can actually jump up into this combat and actually get a ton more combat points with your opponents not knowing that you were actually going to be that competitive in the combat.
I love that too, because like that's where the tension comes in. And like the race to 10 points like really, really matters because then you don't know what people have. And that's what I love about the game too. It's like the interplay between all of these random, not random, but all of these like mechanisms between worker placement, the resources you have, the cards you haven't revealed yet, and the cards that you're getting to add to your deck. That's what I love about this game, easily, like
Totally.
hands down. For sure,
Totally.
my favorite thing too.
Well, I'm glad that you could agree with that. I'm really glad. I'm really glad. The thing
Yeah.
about the like the oh gosh, what was I going to say? The thing about the combat specifically though that is really interesting is just how much victory points you can actually get from it. Like you can get 2 victory points from it. And I don't know, until you've played this game, you don't realize how much victory points just 2 is. It's the first to 10 victory points, which is really cool because this game takes kind of that old game approach, I would say. I guess old victory point approach where there's just a straight number of victory points that you have to get. We're not doing it's kind of like Settlers of Catan as opposed to pretty much everything else out there, which is point based, where you do all these crazy things and then everybody's just calculating the points. In this game, you know exactly who is at 9, 8, and who's about to get to 10 points and cause the end of the game to start. And it's just like super intense the whole time. I sweat a lot when I play this game.
Dude, me too.
Yes.
Like we had so many close games because I've only played it at the 2-player count.
Okay.
But even at 2, like we've been at 8 to 9. Like we range like between like maybe like 2-point differences at the very end for like almost every game, except for the first one because we didn't know how to play it yet. But like after that, it was always like so close, always like 1 to 2 point differences. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah.
Love attention.
Yeah,
Sure.
I completely agree as well because we actually mostly play it too as well. So sorry, me and Kate, not us. I wish we played it too. Jeez.
Wait, we could.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
We should.
I would get murdered easily. Trust
No,
me.
no.
That's why I'm scared to play.
I'm not that great. I'm okay at it. But, me and my wife, we play it too mostly. And the very first time that we actually played a 4-player game of this was like crazy. It's a completely different game, not in a bad way. I liked both. It was just a completely different experience. So I think that's also another thing is that like a lot of people's criticisms of it might be at a lower player count where the cards in the market aren't really shuffling around that much. Because in a 2-player game, I can see how that does happen sometimes where like nobody wants any of the cards currently available. And so I'll just like buy a card to get it out of there. Have you ever run into that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one. I have 2 main frustrations with this game. The first one is the one that you mentioned, which was like cycling through the cards. Like the cards themselves, like I love them because they're impactful. But it's like getting through the deck. Like we have so many cards left over that we don't get to cycle through, for sure. One frustration. And the second one for me, so initially, to just give a little premise behind this, I did not like this game at all. Like the first playthrough, which is why it's funny. Like we were kind of talking about this earlier with like first impressions and like the first time you play a game. Like it's so unrepresentative of the actual gameplay, and like we have to play it so many times, or at least for me, I always review at 3 or more, like minimum. But I did not like this game at first, and then I just progressively loved it more and more and more. But I will say the 2 frustrating things for sure are the ability to cycle through your cards, and secondly is combat for me. So combat for me, dude, I feel like I'm missing a little bit more interest in combat. Expression, dude. Here's why. Let me explain myself. Okay, so I feel like with combat, we're just allocating resources to a pool. How I would have loved it more. Like I think it's interesting where we have like conflict cards and a different scenario is introduced with each one, and how like different spaces have combat, but I still for some reason I feel like it's almost tacked on a little bit, and I feel like combat would be so much more interesting if the warriors or the soldiers, whatever the troops that we call them and stuff, if the troops if they have distinguishing abilities, if like there's specific classes of troops that give unique abilities, I feel like I would love combat so much more. And I also think that the miniatures would play a big role too in combat here, because like cubes versus warriors, like full on miniatures would make a huge difference in this game. I think I would enjoy it way more with miniatures.
So I do have the upgrade pack because I'm crazy and I literally have already spent like $120 on this game, even though the game is only worth like $55.
That would
Uh,
be worth it. I'm gonna get it too.
yep, I got the upgrade
Worth it. I'm
pack,
gonna get
which
it
comes
too.
with the miniatures. Um, Here's the thing about the cubes, though. I didn't mind the cubes. I never minded the cubes. I think
Mhm.
that I think that the most okay. So I'll just say flat out, we disagree on this one. I think the
Okay, okay, go
combat.
ahead.
I think we disagree on mostly because I think that there's more than just there's a lot of different things that can add to the combat points. So you've got
Hmm.
the actual cubes or the warriors. You've got those that actually add to those points. But then, like I was saying, the hand as well plays into it. What
Hmm.
you have on in your hand actually can add combat points, which can make the combat even more interesting, in my opinion. Because it's like,
Hmm.
oh, what I see on the board is I see that you have 3 cubes right now, but I didn't know that you were stashing 7 swords in your hand that whole time, and you could be totally
Hmm.
bluffing me the whole time. And I'm like, oh, I definitely got this, so I'm only going to leave 4 cubes on the board. I totally got this
Yeah.
combat. And then there's also intrigue cards, which we have not talked about.
Hmm.
But intrigue cards can just give you straight up swords to use. Sometimes they'll just like have like 4 swords, which is
Hmm.
insane. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna play this intrigue card, 4 swords. Screw
Take
you.
first.
I
Yeah.
take it. Boom. There's like a whole period of combat where everyone has the chance to essentially play their intrigue cards, and it can get pretty intense with those as well. Some factions or sorry, some characters get access to more intrigue cards, and if you want to get intrigue cards, you can just go to the Bene Gesserit because since they're all about intrigue, you can gain cards from them as well. So
Hmm.
I feel like those 3 avenues of kind of being able to change the wave of combat, I think that makes it interesting enough for me. However, I would obviously like it to be even more asymmetric. Like what you're saying
Hmm.
sounds great, but I don't think the current system is flawed in any way. But I do like the idea of like
Yeah.
different types of warriors with different abilities, which with the Rise of Ix expansion, we now have dreadnoughts. I don't know if you saw that, Tim.
Oh, I didn't see that. See, you like put my own words better than I did. That's what I wanted. I wanted more asymmetry in the combat. That was what I was craving, I think. Like I love the surprise. I love the reveal. That's fun. But I wanted to ask you too. How do you think about the rewards offered? Do you think they are balanced, or do you think the loser or second place and lower should not reap as many rewards? What do you think about that?
Oh, okay. So you're talking about for the combat cards, there's like
Yeah.
three essentially there's 3 rewards. So the
Uh,
player at the top gets the top reward. If you're playing a
mm-hmm.
two-player game, it's actually the second place player gets the third reward. So the lowest
Because the
reward.
bot gets second, right?
Right, right. So it's interesting because I have had cases where I felt like it was intriguing because it was like I was almost purposefully going for a lower spot because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really need the biggest reward. It would be like 3 water and some Solari or something, and then the second one would have like an intrigue card, and I'd be like, I'd rather have the intrigue card. Interestingly enough,
Yeah. See,
yeah.
uh-huh.
So sometimes
That's
I've
why
yeah,
for
I've
me.
found it to where I would like try to get second place, which I found was like an interesting thing was like I don't always want to win first in these. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
I've I've found that that was kind of intriguing for me personally. However, Katie, she is more like she doesn't like the combat very
Uh-huh.
much. She's not like into the combat in like any game like at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
she just is like she just like lets me have the highest one pretty much every game, and she just goes for all the other things. And I like that that's an option. Like if you don't like the combat in this game, you technically could just avoid it.
Yeah.
Have you
I
tried that?
think no, because I'm like very combat oriented in games, which is funny because Jackie, my fiance, is extremely combat oriented too. So we're always competing. And then when like she wins like the top reward, and I get like, for example, let's say the top reward was like 3 Solari
Mm,
or 3 spice, and then the second reward is like 2 spice. She's like, wait, I poured all my resources into this, but
mm,
you get practically the same thing for
mm.
like putting a couple of warriors on here. I feel like that's our consistent like fight little debacle between combats. Like the reward system, maybe if I'm trying to pin it down on what I don't like about it, maybe the reward system isn't as satisfying or gratifying for first place.
Mm,
But I do love how interesting it is in that it takes a unique approach on it. Like you mentioned, how you don't always have to vie for first place.
yeah,
You can go for like second and third, and that's fine. I think
totally.
that's cool, but it's not something that I prefer.
Sure.
But if you like that, it's all up to you. It's on combat too. So
I mean, isn't that
yep.
gaming, right? We all have our different
Yeah.
like wants and needs and what we
Tastes.
can get out of it. Because like for me, I would say it's really intriguing like having those goals kind of be sometimes first place it's just like not even worth it. And I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
puzzle there for me is don't overcommit. Which is tough to do in this because it's like on one end you want to just put 8 warriors in the combat, but on the other end it's like, but what if they only put 2 warriors? Then because you spend
Yeah.
everything you put in there. Anything that you put in the combat, you lose guaranteed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always a gamble on like how much can I afford to lose is essentially what you're asking yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very true.
yeah,
And like, so if you play the two-player account, do you like the bot, the House Haggle? Is that how you say it?
yeah.
Hagel?
House Hagel or whatever. Yeah, we've
House
called
Hagel?
it
Yeah, yeah.
Haggle, Hagel, Hagall. We've called it all three.
Haggle.
Yeah,
I like that.
Hagall.
Haggle. That sounds epic, dude.
So I actually like it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really easy to run, and you can also get the app on your phone, and it literally just has the cards on there for you, so you don't even have to worry about the finickiness of drawing a card and reshuffling the deck.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like it because I think it adds just enough tension for spaces. Like there's been a couple of times where it's been like, okay, I'm gonna go to the Bene Gesserit, I'm gonna get that intrigue card, and then
Yeah.
it always seems like that
Freaking blocks it
darn
right in time, huh?
deck just goes straight
Yeah.
there. I'm like, what the frick? Is House Hagall like secretly on Kate's side right now? Like I've always felt
Yeah.
like that, but I like that because it simulates that wider player count, and I don't think it's super
Mm-hmm.
hard to run. But how do you feel about it?
I think so. I was frustrated at it at first because I didn't know how to play and like prioritize my moves first and see which locations I should go for first. And I feel like it kind of taught me in a sense that. But the thing is, I also like the app way better than the actual cards. And for some reason, I feel like every time we use cards, dude, it like destroys both of us in combat like easily every time. For some reason, it just draws 4 combat every single time. Like, dude, what's the point of us fighting if it takes like first place every time? It's crazy. But in the app though, it's really nice because like they have sound effects. Like it's super polished, and I really love how polished the app is. It's like super nice.
It is
So
very clean.
if you were to play with the bot, recommend playing with the app.
Definitely would also
Easily.
recommend playing with the app. There's also a couple of different variant modes that you can play through that app, which I think is another reason why I think that this is such a cool, like, kind of just different concept on a game where they release the game and then they release the app, and now they're adding like variant modes that you can actually play that add special rules to the game through that app. So it will tell you to start with different resources, or it will have an event deck that will actually change spaces on the board and tell you that when you go here, you get these extra resources. Sometimes they'll have like a random event that will come up, which will essentially say you can gain any of these resources, but you're only going to gain it in 2 turns. And so you'll like all secretly choose what to gain in 2 turns, and then 2 turns from then it's like, oh, Sam gets 2 influence on the Harkonnen track, and it's just like everybody's like, whoa, this is going crazy.
Yeah.
Um, those
Yeah.
those moments. Oh, not Harkonnen. Harkonnen is not a track that you can go up. I meant to say Guild because Guild is like kind of like Harkonnen. But essentially, you could go up like 2 influence on one of the tracks. That is a huge impact, and it can be a little sneaky if you wait like 2 turns from then. You can kind of start planning around that with some crazy combos. I really like how the app can add stuff like that. Have you played with any of those variants?
I haven't played with any of the variants, but we always play with the app now. So I want to try it next for
You
sure.
should try some of those variants out. It spices it up. No pun intended. It's really good.
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
That was nice. That was nice. That was nice.
Yeah. Come on. We got to get spicy. The movie's also really good, but that's totally off topic. I'm just obsessed with Dune right now, so that doesn't help.
I can see why. Like it's so actually speaking of the movie, I kind of want to mention it for a second just so we can purposely butt heads. I try to watch it so many times. Dude, I can't get through it. I'm sorry, dude. I tried, man. I tried 3 times and I've gotten to like the 30-minute mark and I'm so lost. I have no idea what's going on. But I will give another shot just for you, dude. One more shot.
I watched that movie 3 times and was like
Mm-hmm.
fully in it. Like I
Immersed.
was just immersed in it, dude. Yeah.
Wait, did you read the books though?
Yes.
Do
I
you think it helps reading the books
well,
versus like not
so
reading?
I read the first book
Uh-huh.
and that was it. That was all I read. Which is all you need to read technically. However, I would say that you don't have to read the books to like get it. It just depends on if you like the movie or not at the end of the day, which
Yeah.
it's not for everyone. It's a very like slow burn film. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything is very
I can see
much
that.
like it's building up to a climactic moment. And I think one thing
Mm-hmm.
that I appreciate about this movie is that it really is putting those threads in there this early
Mm-hmm.
on for what craziness happens in part two. Because part one,
Yeah.
it's like all the buildup, we're getting that standard hero's journey. It's all going really
Mm-hmm.
good. And then part two, it's like every single thing that you thought about a hero's journey, say goodbye to it. This is not hero's journey. This is Dune. And I think
Yeah.
that that's one of the reasons why I like the book so much. And one of the reasons why I ultimately will probably love part two as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting choice. It sucks that they had to split it in 2 parts, but I get why they would.
Yeah.
It's just sucky that part two is so crazy. And I would love
Yeah.
for everybody to get to the craziness that is Dune, but we have to get through part one first.
I think that might be why, because like it almost reminds me of Lord of the Rings because I didn't like the Fellowship at first. And then like I feel like as years went on, I went back and I appreciated it so much more. And now it's like my favorite trilogy of all time. So I feel like Dune with that build up is kind of the same thing with like the first Fellowship, you know?
It is. It is though. Yeah. It's the same kind of concept of like Fellowship of the Ring. Like you might not like it now, but I think you'll learn to appreciate it, especially when part two is out. When because this isn't the full story either. But you gotta get past 30 minutes too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna try.
Okay.
I'm gonna try because like are the movie because I want to know more about like the movie themes. Like are they good? Like are they like beautifully intertwined in this game? Like what do you think? Like thematically, do you think
So
it ties everything well?
okay, that's actually a good thing that I wanted to talk about on here actually, because coming
Mm-hmm.
from the background of having read the book, coming from the background of having watched the movie, is this Dune game thematic enough for Dune? Like, does
Mm-hmm.
this add up to what has come before? Because I'll tell you what, there is a crazy Dune game out that is insanely asymmetric that I've already played. It's the Dune that came out in like 1979, and it's one of the most asymmetric games you could play. It was one of the first games that like really got me into asymmetric gameplay as a whole. And that literally has like different win conditions. There's a faction that can at the beginning of the game call out another player, call out a turn that they will win, and if that happens, if that player wins on that turn, then they don't win, you win. And that's a secret thing that you put
What?
in before the
Yeah.
game. You essentially
Yeah.
choose a faction and a turn. And so your whole goal as the Bene Gesserit, who are in the movie,
Uh-huh.
is to essentially sway the course of history to have them win on turn 6, essentially. So you're just
Yeah.
trying to make another player win so that you win. And it's
Yeah.
insane. Nobody knows
That's
who they're
badass.
trying to make win. So that game,
Mm-hmm.
coming from the background of like that game being literally so thematic, every single thing makes sense. It's almost too thematic
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of people. It's boring to some people because of that.
Yeah.
This game is not thematic compared to that game. It's just
Okay.
not. It's just not. But
Yeah.
as a game, it's decently thematic. This is definitely a game first, theme second for me though.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
I
this,
see that.
in my opinion, Dune Imperium is an amazing game, but the theme, it could have been something else. This doesn't have to be a Dune game. Like I could easily have seen this being even a medieval game with knights and stuff. Like, yeah, it didn't have to be a Dune game. But I think that the Dune theme on top of it definitely adds to the appeal of it because this is, the movie came out. There's a lot of people that are getting into Dune right now. So this was a smart decision from Direwolf to make it a Dune game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a lot of thematic ties. I'm not saying they're not there, but from somebody who hasn't read the book, you're not going to see any of those thematic ties. I don't think you'll ever
Yeah.
understand some of them. You might
Yeah.
get the idea that the guild is all about like shipping and transport. You might get the idea that the empire is all about the
Yeah.
money and they circulate all the cash. You might get the idea that the Bene Gesserit is like all the secrets and all the intrigue really that goes on.
Oh, that makes sense now. Okay.
And you might get the idea that the Fremen are the only ones that actually live on the planet of Dune, which is why all of theirs allow you to send troops
Water?
there. Right. And why you need water and you get water from them. So there are a lot of thematic ties, but I don't think if you haven't really read anything that you would even understand them or it would matter. Did it make a difference for you at all?
I mean, I think that's why I wanted to know your thoughts on it, because I didn't read the books and it wouldn't count for me to say I watched the movie either. So that's why I'm like interested to know, like, is this like actually thematic to the context that's out already, you know? But I mean, does it actually add to the gameplay if it's thematic or not? Right? As you said, still amazing game either way.
Right,
so.
right. I mean, I think it's an amazing game and it adds to the gameplay for me personally, but to Kate, it doesn't really add that much. But we can both still enjoy it. But like I can be like, oh, dude, I'm playing the Baron Harkonnen, you know, I'm playing him, so that's why I get all the intrigue cards. That's why I'm making all these little sneaky little things happen, because that's literally him in the entire book and movie.
Yeah.
And like I can get into that a little bit. But
is he the big like purple guy, the Baron Harkonnen?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The Thanos looking one?
Yeah, he does look like Thanos in this game. He doesn't look like Thanos anywhere else, but in this game he has like a purple tint to his skin. When originally
he's purple, and then he has like the chin too. I was like, wait, is this Thanos? Or like what?
Yeah. No, he's actually just like really gray and because he doesn't have
like
any
in the movie.
Right, the movie. Yeah.
I got to that part at least. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Because he's very unhealthy and he hasn't seen the sun in a long time. Because Giddy Prime does not get any sun. The planet that they're from.
Oh,
so
gotcha. Okay.
They're literally all white skinned because they just don't get that sunlight. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the theme there.
Yeah, I mean, I also have to ask you about combat too. So if you already played the expansion to this, how do the dreadnoughts add to combat? Is it worth getting?
It's okay. Well, I love this game.
I have thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love this game. So I think that the expansion is way worth getting, because one thing that I've been having problems with expansions lately is they're trying to add too much to games, or they're like trying to like change the game too much in a way. I don't want an expansion that changes the game, but I do want an expansion that just adds a little bit extra to a great game already. And so this expansion is wonderful because it essentially just comes with a board overlay that goes over a section of the board that makes that part a little bit more interesting. And it also adds those dreadnoughts, which is really cool. And those dreadnoughts, the way that they work is essentially they have 3 strength instead of 2, so they're just a little bit stronger. And then instead of like for the regular warriors, they get discarded when you're done using them in a combat.
Yeah.
Dreadnoughts don't get discarded. They stay. Essentially, if you win the combat, then you can send the little dreadnought over to one of the 3 cities, Arakeen, Carthag, one of those, and essentially they work as like a banner to gain resources when other players go there until the end of that round, and then they return to your garrison. So they never really leave. And if you lose a combat with the dreadnought, they just go back to your garrison to be used for the next one. So it's kind of this constant extra pressure that you add to the combat. It's not too much of a difference, but it's just enough to where like if you invested in your dreadnoughts, you might be the only player with 1, or maybe you're the only player with 2. It just depends on if you wanted to build a strategy around buying them, because you do have to purchase these and they're pretty expensive Solari amounts. So, but I like the fact that once you buy them, they don't really leave. They're just kind of this hovering monster that just kind of sits around and wins combats for you.
So the superficial aspect of me has to ask, are they actual like physical dreadnoughts?
No. Well, they're like little wooden things.
Even with the miniatures expansion too? They
didn't add miniatures for the dreadnoughts. No. I know, I was so sad. You get this miniatures expansion, and then you buy the Rise of Ix expansion, and you're like, wow, my board looks great. And then there's these little wooden dreadnoughts.
Oh, frick.
That look really lame right by your warriors. I'll say that much.
Yeah. Dude, I saw those warriors, the picture you sent me. It looks so epic, honestly. Like, they look good.
Dude, they're nice. They're real nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. The
it makes
miniature
such a big difference
quality
versus like
and oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Here's the
yeah,
thing. I like the cubes. I liked the cubes. You know, it's like the
I like the
Euro
cubes.
game kind of
Yeah.
look. You know, it kind of brought me back to some of the older Euro games. It's classic, you know, but
Hmm.
it definitely makes a huge impact to have the little, and they're all unique too. So like when you get, you know, like the green pieces,
Oh, I didn't know
the
that.
green pieces
Yeah.
are different mold than the red pieces, than the yellow pieces, than the blue pieces. They're all three different molds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah. And same with
Interesting.
the agents. All the agents are different molds as well. So,
The Mentat, or is that how you say it?
yep. The
Mentat.
Mentat. Yep. The
Yeah.
Mentat. That's another, okay. That's another thing. Oh man, we could be mixing the movie and mixing everything, but it's so funny how little people know about what's going on with the Mentats as well in like the movie and stuff. Like
Yeah.
Kate was like, what was
Hmm.
that guy's deal and stuff? And I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
let me just tell you everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. Like the lack of explaining in the movie and also in the game is actually kind of interesting.
Yeah. Can you like give me a little recap of what he actually does?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
thematically.
So the mentat essentially, so mentats are so okay. There was this thing called the Butlerian Jihad, which was essentially
Okay.
where they got rid of all robots. And this is
Hmm.
not in the first book. This is just like a history pass thing. You can find it in the appendix on like, you know, history of Dune. Essentially, there was like a
Hmm.
time where robots were trying to take over, and so they banned robots, and there was a great war against them. Essentially, called the
Interesting.
Butlerian
Okay.
Jihad. So mentats are essentially human computers or people that have devoted their entire life to becoming a human computer. So they are
Oh, okay.
practicing every single day to essentially just build as much knowledge as possible. They know how to calculate like razor sharp. Like in the movie, he makes a crazy calculation. One of the guys like he like asks him a question about like how much Solari did it take to ship down here, and he's just like it's
Yeah.
this much, you know. So they're
Yeah.
literally like superhuman computers, but they're just 100% human, which is interesting. They're not robot at all. And in the game, what the mentat does is essentially, since every single great house has a mentat at their disposal to kind of help guide and be an advisor to them, in the game you can
Hmm.
hire a mentat to give you an extra turn in the game, which is just like a small way of like, oh, you can get this little piece to essentially give you another chance at doing another action. Can give you a little bit of an edge, which is smart because
Hmm.
mentats do give an edge in the actual movie and in the books a lot of the time.
Yeah. I usually try to go for him first when I'm playing. Like initially, him or like the third worker and or.
Right, right. Which the third worker is really expensive, like 8 Solari. It's
Yeah.
very, very expensive. But
It's a
the
bunch.
earlier you get it, it pays back out in dividends. Because
Okay.
it's like the earlier you have it, the more times you get to use it over your opponent, and you get like, you know, 6 extra spaces over your opponent. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Dang, that's intense. But how about we leave the viewers with one last thing I kind of wanted to ask you, which is since you are the master of strategy guides,
Oh,
do you
gosh.
have any pro tips for Dune Imperium?
Pro tips for Dune Imperium. Okay, well, we got a couple here. I would
Yeah.
say the biggest thing in Dune Imperium is to not overly focus on, or sorry, don't overdo yourself. Don't focus on trying to do everything. The
Mhm.
beauty of this game is finding particular strategies within it and kind of making those work for yourself. So like what I mean by that is if you were going for a combat strategy, if you're going to try to get, you know, you want to fight, you want to do a lot of combat, go for those
Mhm.
go for those cards that have the swords on the bottom of them. Don't buy cards that you're like, "Oh, this will help me with influence in my deck and stuff. That's going to be great."
Yeah.
Go
That's me.
give your yeah
That's me.
give yourself a bonus where you're already headed, because that's going to be more worth it than spreading yourself out and being weaker in every single one of those, because there's going to be somebody going a lot of influence, you're going to be losing in that game, and then there's going to be somebody also going all combat, maybe you're going to be losing in that game too. So focusing a little bit harder on one is definitely going to help you out with the first starting games. The other big tip, and dude, I say this about every game that involves cards, and it's just like the
Yeah.
most simple thing that people can do to get better at a game. Grab
Okay.
the deck, look at it. That's it. Grab the deck and look at it before you play.
Oh, okay.
The more
Okay. I was
you
like, wait, during
know,
the game?
yeah, the more you know about a game and its aspects of the game, the more you can essentially play to its strengths. Like, oh, I see this card. I know exactly what it does because I've already read it. Instead of
Hmm.
like you kind of thinking on the moment, like, oh, I've got these cards available. What does this one do? What does that one do? And you're like leaning over the table. You're in the moment. You're stressed
Hmm.
out. You don't know what you're going to go for. There's so much value and knowledge in board gaming in general. I always
Hmm.
recommend just looking through the cards. One of the interesting things about the cards in this deck is that the cards that are a part of the different factions do things that are
Yeah.
very similar to those different factions. Essentially, like
Hmm.
Imperial cards, those are going to be more money gain. That's just an easy thing to do. Or spending Solari to get things, like spending Solari to get a victory point, spending Solari to get warriors. The guild cards are really good at drawing cards, finding particular cards in your discard pile, and essentially like card manipulation. The Bene Gesserit's all really, really good at intrigue and special effects and pretty much, yeah, just a lot of shenanigans, tricking your opponents, doing cool little effects and stuff, and also forcing your
Hmm.
opponents to do things that they don't want to do. And then the Fremen, they're all about comboing with Fremen cards. So if you're gonna go for a Fremen card, it's best
Oh,
to
makes
get
sense. Uh-huh.
multiple Fremen cards because they actually can pull and work together with this Fremen bond ability, where essentially if you have two Fremen cards, you get another ability. So there's
Yeah.
there's all these ways that you can play these cards, but you're never gonna know that until you actually look through them and realize how they work, what they do.
And this is why you are the king of strategy, my friend.
Well, I guess if you don't want to call it king of strategy, you could just call it king of
Mm.
research because literally that's the more you know, the better you are at a game naturally. And I just really like to learn everything I can about games. That would
Yeah.
attribute it all to me just reading just reading cards. That's pretty much what I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
That's not for like, that's a whole nother topic for discussion too. Just talk about like playing more games or playing the ones you have now
Oh my gosh.
more,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
That's a whole nother
That's
topic.
literally what I'm all about. Actually, I did just think of one more strategy though that I definitely want to share cuz this
Hmm.
one's very
Let's hear it.
important. In Dune Imperium, we were talking about this earlier that, deck building is a mechanic in this game and some people think it's not important, some people think it's more important. To make your deck building more important, don't always just buy trash cards. Like, if you have the persuasion to buy a card and you don't want a specific card up there, hold off and don't buy it. It's not a waste of persuasion. You're not going to take it to the next turn anyways. Don't buy it if it's going to clog up your deck for no reason. Have purpose to each one of your cards. I was just playing a game, actually a 4-player game, and my whole goal in the game was to build a deck that was very tight, very small. It ended up only being, I think, a 13 card deck, and the deck starts at 10 cards. So I was discarding all my basic cards and just adding exactly what I
Yeah.
wanted. And every 2 hands, I would get abilities over and over again. Really good abilities. You can play
Yeah.
this game that way. You can do it. It works. You could go to cards where you could discard certain cards in your discard pile. I mean, it's yeah. So there's so much more to it. Definitely be careful with what you're adding to your deck because it gets clogged up really fast because you don't have very many turns to go through it. So
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't the spice must flow? Isn't that like a high priority card, right?
yes,
Because I feel like I always go for that one.
yeah. You can build a really
Yeah.
small deck of high persuasion cards to where essentially you're
Hmm.
just revealing turns and buying a spice must flow card every turn.
Yeah.
And
That's a fun one.
I've seen decks be built that way. So there's so many ways
Yeah.
you can go about it.
I think that's what I like love most about the game, despite like for my own personal pitfalls of combat.
I never knew it was
Like
just
everything
the
else makes up
combat.
for it. 'Cause I know it's
Oh,
combat, but still, like I feel like the interplay between everything and like the all the tracks that you have, like I love multiple paths to victory. And this one, like even though you see like one, two, three, what, four, five tracks to victory ish, like there's so many more because the way they like interplay with each
so
other,
many more.
the way like they mix with each other, the deck building, like there's so much depth to this game, but it's simple,
It's a
right?
very easy game. Yeah, it's a very simple
Hmm.
game. That is something that we haven't even mentioned yet, but it's not super hard to
Yeah.
teach. This, as opposed to the other Dune games out right now, this is probably one of the easier ones to teach, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Place a worker and reveal a card.
place a worker, reveal a
Pretty much it.
card, boom. You're already set up for success. So
Exactly.
definitely.
Those are your actions. So, but yeah, that is our full discussion of Dune Imperium. We can obviously go on about it for a while too. by the way. But I appreciate all your strategy tips, Sam. No, you love the game. I like, even though I hated the game first, not even hated it, even though I didn't like it at first,
Dang.
I grew to appreciate it. And I feel like it quickly grew on my list when I realized how many mechanisms were at play here, which is crazy.
There really is a lot. Yeah.
It goes to show you can't play a game once, dude. That's why like first impressions for me, it's like,
Yep.
that's why I don't do them, because I'm just like,
Yep.
Not to bag on anyone who does do them, but I'm just saying like my own first impression, I don't do them because if I did a first impression of this game, can you imagine? Oh, this game sucks. Oh, everything's like really bad.
Happens all the time.
But
happens all the time. Reviewers will review a game
Right.
based off of one play and not fail to mention that it was one play because, reviews can be impacted by your current mood, maybe who you were playing with that night. I mean, board games they can be, different experiences depending on the time of day. I mean, you got to give a game multiple chances if you want to give a full-bodied review of it. If you're looking for a one-off first impressions, like people care about your opinion of your very first impression on the game, then sure, that's correct. But don't phrase it like a full-on review if you're just playing it once, because that's a first impression. So it's just an interesting thing. Yeah.
I try to catch myself too. Like if I'm in like in a bad mood or if I'm not in a mood to like play, I try to just to not even play at all.
Totally.
I just avoid it. Like, nope, just pass.
Same.
Just try another day.
Same. Because I'll probably think that the game that I didn't like it. Like that's what happened to me with Dwellings of Eldervale. Remember I told you?
Dude, that rips my heart out.
I know, dude.
Just
I
about
told you that the
initially.
very first time I played it, I was just not in a great mood and I was not vibing with the game. And it was like, well, I don't know what's going on. And then I played it again and I was like, was this the same game that I was playing like 2 nights ago? Because this feels like a whole different game. This is great. So yeah, you got to give games more of a chance. So
let us know if you have any games that you want Sam and I to review. Next one's going to be on Sam's channel. So since this one is here, but thanks for sticking with us with this very first episode discussing Dune Imperium. Looks like I might have to get the expansion, by the way, because I really do want to play with the Dreadnoughts.
Definitely.
To improve combat a little more.
It's great. It's great.
But other than that, we will see you on Sam's channel.
See you later.
Subscribe down below. Let me rehearse that. See what I mean? I have to do multiple takes, dude. I can't do like you, dude. You're like so
we've
good
done
at
it,
doing
bro.
one takes.
We've done it, bro.